Hey, what's up, you guys? Nick here, coming at you for the first time in what's it been? 5 minutes, 5 months? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Hasn't been that long. Uh, um, I just started recording like 3 minutes of me talking about thoughts that have been spinning around in my head about faith and religion and institutionalism. And I'd like to make that video for you guys sometime soon. But then I didn't feel like continuing on with the subject matter. So let me give you a TLDR. That stands for turnip lips. Uh, don't run. Institutions. I think that my generation and younger, 27 is my age, so on the cusp of millennial and certainly down from the millennials younger. There is not there's not this inherent trust of institutions or just blanket. And I'm talking about in America, but the institutions that sell us groceries, govern our politics, govern our local politics, any institution you can really name, uh, that trust is like way, way down in our generation. Even and the younger ones, even myself being a millennial raised by boomers, in a millennial mindset, and being taught by the boomers to, or at least like tacitly an influence, not always an overt message, but a tacit implication of my upbringing under a set of boomers was like this semblance of trust in the system or a certain way of like paying respects to a system kind of disproportionate of how shittily regressive the institution becomes and oppressive and squeezing the life out of you. Um, so that's just a fact. I think you can see this behavior on the rise statistically, nominally, on a macro level, anecdotally, and it seems borne out pretty well um, in a general sense with my generation and Gen Z. Probably will be the case with Alpha, but you never know. And that carries over to religion, even in very traditional places I've lived in, and religiously traditional or stringent people I've talked to in the Catholic, excuse me, Catholic, Lutheran, Baptist, LDS circles. There's still a generational softening of a hesitation to claim fierce loyalty to and love for and belief in these religious or faithful, or even a lot of cases, humanitarian organizations, but like, you know, not religion, but the personal relationship with God or with the humanitarian work, etc. I guess I ended up just kind of giving you guys the 3 minutes and all that, anyways. That's what I was going to talk about, but I feel like that is what I have to say on it for now. And I'll give you guys a more meaty one on that someday in the future. But I just got little quick bits for you. So what I instead decided to talk about is anger and hopefully convey some kind of a message or at least a story and retrospective on my life and my relationship with anger and its progression. And by that, storytelling to you maybe just inspire some thoughts. Because whatever thoughts you have about it aren't wrong. They could be stupid, but a lot of ideas that anybody has, including myself and you, are stupid. So you shouldn't let that hold you back. Um, yeah, so I do feel like as a pre-adolescent, maybe I would say an adolescent, that's, when people's whole shit starts to go wacky. Certainly for a long time as a young adult and tween and teenager, early ages, 19 and younger, certainly. My relationship with anger was complicated, but not in a way to insult my upbringing or parentage, but I think it's a excuse me, a little bit of sinus issues today. I think it's my observation about my upbringing is that anger was definitely, projected down from the leaders of the household. And sorry, I'm looking at the camera, just like looking at my chompers for some reason. Got my camera display right below the actual camera device. Um, Anger is just not something that was particularly um an emotion that was encouraged for myself or my siblings to like feel comfortable to be straightforward with about in any form of expression to our parents. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, we were battered, ignored, silent children. But there was sort of a boomer-esque expectation that anger is, like I said, projected down because of the inherent power structure um, of the household and the nature of how the adult relates to the child. And so outbursts were definitely, all that kind of a thing. I think a lot of you guys who would be watching this kind of get what I'm talking about. And also that, obviously that can be fought against and rebelled against. And I think there were times when I did, but as far as that goes, it never availed me of much. And so I personally, with my natural inclinations and the way that I adapted to being raised in that environment, with those expectations, did become more of a hold it in type. And that had to be addressed as I reached mid to late teenagehood, 18 and 19, getting out on my own, living in the real world with other new expectations, but never again the same obtrusive, pervasive um, expectation of somebody who can actually, within a somewhat socially acceptable manner of expressing my anger, actually punish me for it. I mean, there's always repercussions for the way you conduct yourself. But childhood was, the time in my life where the most, as I think it is for some of us, or maybe a lot of us, most directly had my emotions. Someone had the thumb on that scale of how I could express them. All of us live under that thumb still of society, but there is a and even as a child, there's always a personal limit of how much of that you're willing to put up with and how much you're willing to fight back and rebel, be it advisable or beneficial to yourself or not. That's always within a person's control. That being said, I definitely grew up to be, I've grown into someone who feels a lot more comfortable being what people would consider a boisterous or an assertive person. For me though, it's not really you know, spontaneous. I've come to a much because I'm not a person who's prone necessarily to angry outbursts, but I am the type of person or am definitely growing intentionally into the type of person who will pretty predictably try and express in the moment like frustration with someone or and am I Mr. Healthy, Mr. 100% ideal healthy expression of anything? No. It's really hard to point to anybody at all who you could say is a perfect, but that's the thing about self-expression. You always balance what offense could I be causing to this person versus what is the merit or reward or benefit or sense of relief that I'll get from making that expression. How do you weigh them? What's the pro and con? And I've gone way more towards likely to self-express in that way, especially when it concerns anger. So that's something that's been incredibly emotionally beneficial for me over the course of my life. And I know you might be surprised. I can be a sassy, sarcastic person with a sharp repertoire of quick little quips to give back. Excuse me, Jesus. Um, what can I say? I was a debate kid, and I hold a lot of that in. I try not to be mean spirited. I do give some shit to the people I know it's appropriate to give shit to, and maybe I give a little shit where in times where I know people aren't, I might be pushing the envelope of what that person expects from me or is generally comfortable with because I might think it's an important issue to press, or I feel like I just have an important point to make or something to inspire a little bit of like, you know, some sort of a sentiment in someone that your behavior, that our interaction has led me to feel this way and I don't feel the need or the use in bottling it up and shoving it down. That said, I try not to use quips and quick sarcasm as a way of denigrating people, um, or insulting people, poking fun at people. But what I'm talking about, is just the expression of and the discussion of anger. And as an aside, I realize that all of this may sound very strange to people who were raised or have lived a lot of their lives in an opposite way. In families where the only way to get by is by being hot-headed, loud, and boisterous. I was raised in an environment where tact about picking and choosing battles was like the way to go, the way not to get grounded, the way that was modeled for us to have success within the family unit, the proper way of socializing, And, I was also raised in a stand up for yourself kind of a household, but I think that, in terms of other people, the message we were given about being picked on at school or bullies or, even an expectation set for us about what our adult life would look like. But that gets undercut when that's not even close to the same expectation reserved for a child's behavior towards parents and the authority of the household. And again, I'm not shitting on any of that. Just sort of stating my relationship with these things and my upbringing. Um And so, in that way, if it sounds strange to some of you, who didn't have to sort of, that wasn't your developmental structure or struggle growing up, and becoming an adult, if that wasn't something that needed to be worked on with you emotionally, maybe you're somebody who had to temper that down and tamp it down and learn when too much is too much. I've had to also, but coming from a place where at a certain point I realized there are more instances where I need to amplify and express those feelings from myself to get the results I want in life out of certain situations and just to have, better emotional regulation and overall feel better as a person about how I express myself and what my relationship with socializing with other people. Yeah, so anger, pretty interesting thing. Um, yeah, I think it's important. My philosophy about anger has become, personally, I would rather, certainly with someone I don't, hmm, really just in general, I'm more comfortable expressing it in the moment because in my mind, not that I'm like a person prone to seething or holding grudges, but damn, if you just hold shit in and never say it, especially when you feel like it's important to say it and you want to say it, um, that behavior nonetheless leads to a much higher chance of seething and holding shit in and thinking about it constantly. you know, Classic teenage me behavior was always having my mind sort of affixed on situations like that and what I would have said. And if I could have had the courage to come up with the proper and perfect response to put someone in their place. And I don't have a focus on putting people in their place necessarily anymore when I do express myself and my anger or my disagreement with someone or a desire, just a boundary of like, we're not doing this. I really don't understand why this behavior is happening or why this was said or that was done. Um, I don't feel the need to put people in their place. And it's okay if someone gets angry. Of course, it's okay if someone doesn't appreciate that, but nonetheless, and certainly the less I know somebody, the more I'm like, hey, well, that's too bad. We don't know each other, but although I get it, it can come off as jarring and gruff. I felt that way about people like that growing up. Teachers who had a gruffer voice and a more straightforward way of communicating. Nonetheless, I think it's important, from my from my perspective, I express myself in that way. Jesus Christ. Fucking Siri. Did you guys see my butt when I stood up? Siri fucking blasted through my. Don't. Hey, Siri, stop. Siri, simmer down. Siri, stop. Okay, thank you for your attention to the aside. I wonder if you guys saw my butt. If you did, I'll leave it in. I don't edit these, but I'm gonna look back and see if you saw my butt. Fuck, Siri just went blasting through my earbuds, and I should stop saying her name. Spooked the fuck out of me. What was it talking about? Anger. Yeah. I like to express it. What I was getting at was, in my mind, I try and be expressive for myself and for ease of communication because I like it and to encourage communication. And so that's my way of feeling like I'm trying to show an amount of respect. There's no one way to talk about it when you're expressing anger or how you're doing it. It's self-serving sometimes. Oftentimes you're with communication in general, you're splitting the line of serving the communication of the conversation, serving the relationship you have with that person and serving their stake in the conversation or yourself. But I view it as a way to show respect that I have enough respect for someone to express it to them, and also an acknowledgement that I wouldn't be bothering to express it if I didn't feel like that person had the maturity and the tact in conversation to hear me out and then feel welcome and free and encouraged to make a substantive response, affirmative of, negative to, in general, pursuance of responding to that expression of my own anger. Because anger doesn't have to equal violence or insulting or any such type of a thing. So yeah, that's pretty much my relationship with anger. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say on the general topic down below in the comments. Um, what makes you angry? Um, let's say in public or when what makes you the most angry? What's the behavior that people demonstrate that makes you the angriest? How do you guys deal with anger? How is it, and how is that different from how you have handled anger in the past? I'd love to hear that from you guys. And yeah, losing my train of thought. So I think I need to go do a thing. So yeah, thanks you guys for listening and watching. And whatever you want to say to me and let me know in the comments, please let me know what's on your mind. Thanks you guys for watching. Bye.